Welcome to the Book Talk podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Book Talk Podcast, where we explore the world's most influential books, one conversation at a time. I'm Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here.
Hi, Sophia. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you. And you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm really looking forward to today's discussion.
Me too. I think today's book has the power to change the way people think about business, entrepreneurship, and career success.
I couldn't agree more. It's one of those books everyone should read at least once.
Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to Book Talk Podcast.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, please give it a like and share it with your friends and family. Your support helps us bring you more great book discussions every week.
It really means a lot to us. Thank you for being here.
All right, Sophia, are you ready?
I'm ready. So, what book are we discussing today?
Today we're discussing The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman.
Great choice. Let's dive in and discover why this book has helped millions of people master fundamental business concepts without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on business school.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just wild when you really step back and look at it.
Right. Like every single year, you see thousands of these highly intelligent, super ambitious professionals who just voluntarily take on, well, staggering amounts of debt.
Oh, absolutely. Like well over 150 grand in most cases.
Easily, just to learn this supposed secret language called business. There's this really pervasive cultural assumption that the mechanics of commerce are just locked behind these ivy-covered walls, Like it's a dark art for the elite.
Yeah, like you need a secret password to even understand how a company makes money.
Exactly. But reading through the source material for today's deep dive, this really jarring alternative reality emerges. Because of the companies these MBA graduates end up working for, whether it's, a massive legacy conglomerate or some agile little startup in Silicon Valley, they're all basically running on a surprisingly straightforward loop.
A 5-part operational loop, yeah.
Right. And mastering that loop might not actually require a fancy piece of paper at all.
And that discrepancy, between how complex we think business is versus its actual mechanical reality, that's the entire foundation of Kaufman's thesis here.
It's so fascinating.
It is. I mean, we really have to look at the historical context of the MBA to understand why this credential even became the gold standard in the first place.
Okay, yeah, take us back. When did this actually start?
So the Master of Business Administration, it was designed way back in the early 20th century. And the whole point was to train middle managers for these massive, highly structured industrial conglomerates.
Like the old school factories.
Exactly. Think Ford Motor Company or Standard Oil.
Okay, right.
The curriculum was completely built for a world of very predictable supply chains and super rigid corporate hierarchies. But, the modern economic landscape is completely decentralized now.
Yeah, it looks nothing like that.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So the barrier to entry today is no longer about getting access to proprietary information or, getting onto elite factory floors.
Right, because the information is just out there now.
Exactly. The new barrier is your ability to apply fundamental, repeatable processes in an environment of just extreme uncertainty.
So it's about execution, not just having the textbook.
Bingo. The source material argues that you can totally bypass the institutional gatekeepers. You just have to master this specific set of cognitive tools, which Kaufman calls mental models, instead of just, memorizing outdated corporate case studies.
Okay, I do want to challenge that slightly, though.
Go for it.
Because, well, while I totally understand that the raw information is everywhere, like anyone can go read an accounting textbook for free at a public library.
Sure.
But isn't the astronomical price tag of an elite MBA actually paying for the network?
The network argument. Yeah.
Right. The argument I constantly hear from people in the corporate sector is that you aren't paying for the syllabus. You are paying to sit in a room with future CEOs, hedge fund managers, venture capitalists.
Yeah, you're buying the Rolodex.
Exactly. So if we strip away the networking aspect, are these mental models truly robust enough to replace the sheer, gravitational pull of an Ivy League alumni association?
That's a really fair pushback. And look, the network is undeniably a massive asset. Anyone who dismisses it entirely is just ignoring reality.
Right. It definitely opens doors.
It gets you in the room. Right. But here's the thing. We have to look at the opportunity cost and the actual survival rate of these businesses. An incredible network might, secure your initial round of venture funding.
Or get your resume pulled out of the pile.
Exactly. But a network cannot rewrite a flawed business model. A network cannot force a market to buy a product it fundamentally just doesn't want.
Oh, that's a great point. It can't fix bad unit economics.
Not at all. What the source material suggests is that this heavy reliance on credentialism, it often masks a really dangerous ignorance of basic business physics.
Business physics. I like that phrase.
Yeah, so a mental model, in this context, it's not just some rote fact you memorize for a test. It's a framework for understanding how complex systems actually work.
Like a lens you look through.
Exactly like a lens. Think
Yeah.
of Charlie Munger's famous concept, the lattice of mental models. By internalizing these fundamental principles about how human psychology works, how economics and systems interact, you develop the ability to see the actual structural integrity of any commercial endeavor.
So you can look at a business and instantly see where the cracks are.
Exactly. And the argument here is that true operational competence ultimately outlives the initial boost of a warm introduction from a classmate.
Wow. Okay. That reframes the objective completely. It sounds less like we are trying to find a cheaper substitute for an elite degree and more like we're attempting to learn the actual engineering principles of the machine itself.
Yes, exactly. Regardless of the brand name on the hood.
Right. Like if someone wants to learn to build a high-performance engine, they don't necessarily need to pay a luxury manufacturer for the privilege of watching them do it.
Nope, they can just study thermodynamics.
Thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, mechanical engineering, they can study all that independently. And if they apply those principles correctly, their engine will run just as fast, if not faster, than the factory model.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. You are stripping away the branding to focus purely on the underlying mechanics.
So let's get into those mechanics.
Yeah, let's do it. So to build that engine, the framework asserts that you must understand the absolute foundational architecture of commerce.
Which is?
Well, this isn't abstract theory. This is the literal sequence of events that must occur for a business to survive. The material breaks this down into the engine of commerce, which is made up of 5 non-negotiable interconnected components.
Okay, what are the 5?
They are value creation, marketing, sales, value delivery, and finance.
Okay, let's pull that apart because on the surface, just listing 5 distinct categories sounds a bit, well, simplistic for an audience that deals with complex corporate structures every single day.
Sure, it sounds basic at first glance.
Right, because if I look at a massive multinational tech company or even just a highly specialized mid-size agency, it feels like there are far more than 5 moving parts.
Like what?
Well, you have human resources, legal compliance, research and development, public relations.
Oh, absolutely.
So how does this framework justify condensing all that sprawling chaos of modern enterprise into just these 5 pillars? It almost feels kind of reductionist, doesn't it?
It definitely appears reductionist until you map those specialized departments back to their core purpose within the revenue cycle.
Okay, explain that.
So every single department you just mentioned exists only to support or optimize one of those 5 primary functions.
Really? Even HR?
Even HR. Human resources is not an independent pillar of commerce. It's an internal system designed to acquire and maintain the talent necessary to execute value creation and value delivery.
Oh, I see.
And legal compliance. That exists to protect the finance pillar and ensure value delivery doesn't violate regulatory frameworks.
That makes a lot of sense. So the complexity is just an illusion.
Totally. The complexity of a massive corporation is simply the result of adding more gears and levers to the exact same foundational engine. But the primary sequence never ever changes.
So the sequence is absolute. Okay, let's walk through the mechanics of that sequence, starting with the very first one, value creation.
The big one.
Yeah, because the common entrepreneurial mantra you always hear is, build something people want.
Right, which is incredibly vague.
Super vague. How does this framework define the actual creation of value in a way that separates a viable commercial entity from, say, just a passion project that burns through your savings?
That's the million-dollar question. So value creation is rooted in solving a specific, tangible point of friction or fulfilling a deeply held human desire.
Okay.
And the source material points out that value can take so many different forms. It isn't just a physical product you hold in your hand.
Like it could be a service?
A service, yeah. Or a shared resource, like a gym membership. It could be a subscription, an agency acting on your behalf, or even audience aggregation, which is basically the model for almost every major social media platform.
Right, gathering attention is valuable.
Exactly. But the critical distinction between a real commercial entity and a hobby is that a business must create value that someone else is willing to part with scarce resources to obtain.
Meaning time or money?
Usually money, yes.
Yeah.
If you are coding this brilliant piece of software in complete isolation, but it solves a problem that absolutely no one else experiences or cares about, you haven't created commercial value. You've just created personal art.
Wow. Okay, that brings us to a major point of failure I see constantly, especially out in the tech sector.
Oh yeah, the build it and they will come
Yeah,
fallacy.
exactly. Engineers or creatives will build a genuinely incredible product. Like it has a beautiful user interface, the code is totally flawless, and they just assume the sheer quality of the value they created will somehow generate its own momentum.
It never does.
No. But according to this five-part loop, value creation is completely inert without the second component, which is marketing.
Yes, it's just a paperweight without marketing.
Right. And I want to get very specific here, because in a lot of corporate environments, the lines between marketing and sales are frequently blurred.
Oh, they are constantly blurred,
Mhm.
often to the detriment of the whole company.
So how do we cleanly separate the mechanics of marketing from the mechanics of sales within this engine?
Blurring those lines is a massive operational vulnerability. So, to keep our engine analogy intact, marketing is the process of getting the engine in front of the right audience,
Okay.
while sales is the process of getting that audience to actually buy the ticket to turn the key.
Ah, I like that.
Marketing is strictly about capturing attention and generating interest. It's broadcasting the existence of the value you created to a highly targeted demographic.
Highly targeted being the key word.
Extremely. Like if you have a sophisticated enterprise software solution designed for chief financial officers, and you run a viral TikTok campaign that generates millions of views,
That is completely useless.
it's a catastrophic marketing failure
Yeah.
because it captures the wrong attention. Marketing has to align the perceived value of your offer with the specific desires of a qualified prospect.
So marketing is effectively an exercise in filtering.
Yes.
You are casting a net, but you're intentionally designing the holes in the net to only catch a specific species of fish.
Exactly. You want to filter out all the noise and bring highly qualified leads right to the threshold of a decision.
Which means sales is the actual threshold crossing.
Exactly. Sales is the conversion of that captured attention into a binding commitment. It's the mutual agreement where the prospect actually parts with their capital in exchange for the promise of your value.
Because marketing can be automated, right?
Heavily automated, yeah, and broadcast widely. But sales, it often requires a much deeper psychological alignment. You have to overcome specific objections, establish trust.
Right. You're dealing with human hesitation.
A customer might be perfectly aware of your product, thanks to brilliant marketing. But if the sales process is opaque or aggressive or just fails to address their specific risk profile, they will absolutely abandon the transaction.
So marketing fills the funnel, but sales dictates the actual throughput of the revenue.
Beautifully put, yeah.
Okay, that transitions perfectly into the fourth pillar, which is value delivery. So the customer has signed the contract, the credit card has been charged.
The money is in the bank.
Right. And in a lot of poorly run companies, this is exactly where the effort just drops off a cliff because the revenue has already been secured.
Which is the fastest way to kill a company.
Exactly. But value delivery seems to be the linchpin for long-term survival here. If marketing and sales are the promise of value, value delivery is the physical or digital manifestation of the proof.
And failing to provide that proof destroys the entire engine retroactively. Value delivery encompasses everything involved in fulfilling the promise you made during the sale, ensuring the customer is satisfied, and providing ongoing support.
Let's use an example, like Amazon.
Amazon is the perfect example. Their value creation is a massive marketplace. Their marketing is omnipresent. Their sales process is famously frictionless. But their absolute dominance stems from value delivery.
The logistics.
The logistics. It's a logistical miracle, moving physical atoms across the globe in less than 48 hours. If their delivery network collapsed tomorrow, their marketing and sales would become entirely irrelevant.
Right, nobody would buy if it took a month to arrive.
Exactly. Delivering on the promise at a high standard is what generates repeat business and lowers the cost of future marketing through reputation.
And underpinning all of this, the final pillar that keeps the lights on is finance, which I'm assuming isn't just about hiring an accountant to file your taxes at the end of the year.
No, it's the constant, unforgiving arithmetic of the engine's fuel consumption.
Fuel consumption.
Finance is the ultimate reality check. It's the analysis of unit economics. You could have a wildly popular product, brilliant marketing, a sales team closing thousands of deals, flawless delivery.
But you're still losing money.
Exactly. Because if it costs you $100 to acquire a customer and deliver the value, and you only charge them $90, Your business is a mathematical impossibility.
It's a machine that burns more energy than it produces.
Finance requires you to ruthlessly analyze cash flow, profit margins, and the velocity of capital moving through the other four parts of the engine. If any single one of these five pillars collapses, the entire entity just ceases to exist as a viable operation.
Oh, wow. It creates such a fascinating diagnostic tool for you as a listener. If you are running a department or a side hustle and things are failing, it isn't some mysterious corporate curse,
Right, it's not bad luck.
You simply run a diagnostic on the five parts. Are we failing to create value? Are we capturing the wrong attention in marketing? Are we failing to convert in sales? Are we dropping the ball on fulfillment? Or are our unit economics fundamentally upside down?
It's so clarifying when you look at it that way.
It really is. But this brings us to a massive external variable. Because we can perfect our internal engine all we want, but we don't operate in a vacuum.
No, we don't.
We operate in an external environment with its own laws of physics. And the source material refers to the most brutal, unbending rule of this environment as the iron law of the market.
The iron law of the market. Yeah, this is the single most important mental model in this entire framework.
Tell me about it.
It states that market demand is the ultimate, undeniable arbiter of commercial success. The market is just entirely indifferent to your passion. It doesn't care about your work ethic or the elegance of your code or the millions of dollars you raised in venture capital.
It just doesn't care.
It doesn't care at all. If the market fundamentally does not desire the value you are attempting to create, you will fail. It acts with the absolute, unsentimental certainty of gravity.
I want to dig into this deeply because there is a very persistent counter-narrative in business culture.
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Right. It's heavily, heavily driven by the mythology surrounding figures like Steve Jobs. The famous quote, people don't know what they want until you show it to them.
Yes, the classic Steve Jobs defense.
Exactly. This gives a lot of founders this false confidence to build in total isolation. They ignore market feedback because they honestly believe they are visionaries creating a completely new paradigm. So how do we reconcile the iron law of the market with the reality of truly disruptive innovation?
It's a really critical nuance, and honestly, that Steve Jobs quote is frequently misinterpreted to justify immense corporate hubris.
Okay, how so?
Well, Jobs did not invent new human desires. He invented unprecedented solutions to deeply ingrained, already existing desires.
Ah, I see.
Think about it. Before the iPhone, people already had a desperate, proven desire to communicate, right? To consume media, to signal social status. They were currently fulfilling those desires with, clunky cell phones, separate MP3 players, and digital cameras.
Right. They had a BlackBerry in one pocket and an iPod in the other.
Exactly. Jobs understood the underlying market demand better than the consumers themselves. He recognized the friction in their current solutions and offered a seamless, centralized alternative. He was actually operating in strict adherence to the iron law.
He just saw it clearly.
Right. The danger arises when innovators confuse a novel technology with a novel human desire.
Well, let's ground this in a historical corporate failure, because seeing the iron law break a massive company is, it's highly instructive.
Oh, for sure. What's your favorite example?
So the first thing that comes to mind is that spectacular collapse of Quibi a few years ago.
Oh, wow. Yes, Quibi.
I mean, you had Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman, right?
Yeah.
Two absolute titans of industry. They raised nearly $2 billion before they even launched anything. $2 billion. They had A-list Hollywood directors, the highest production values imaginable, unlimited marketing budgets, a totally flawless technical app for delivery.
They had deep, deep financial backing.
Right. They perfected the internal five-part engine, but the company just evaporated in less than a year.
Quibi is the ultimate modern case study of violating the iron law of the market. I mean, they completely isolated themselves and built a product based on an executive assumption rather than observing actual human behavior.
What was the assumption?
They assumed that because people watched long-form premium content on their televisions and short-form amateur content on their phones, there must be this massive untapped market for short-form, highly produced premium content paid for via subscription on mobile devices.
It sounds logical in a boardroom.
In a boardroom, sure. But they failed to realize that the market was already perfectly satisfied consuming short-form video for free on YouTube and TikTok while waiting in line for coffee.
Right. There was no actual problem to solve.
Exactly. There was no pain point. There was no friction in the consumer's life that Quibi was actively solving. The market simply did not care how much money Katzenberg spent. It coldly rejected the offering because it didn't align with a pre-existing demand.
Quibi built a flawless machine, but they basically tried to drive it off a cliff, expecting gravity to suspend itself.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Which leads to the most urgent question for anyone trying to launch a new initiative or, scale a product. If the market is that ruthless and billions of dollars in funding can't even protect you from the iron law, how do we safely test the waters?
You need a probe.
Right. Like, if I'm a product manager at a mid-sized tech firm, I can't just go ask the executive board for $5 million in R&D and 2 years of development time just to find out if the market cares.
They'd laugh you out of the room.
I need a mechanism to gauge the gravity of the market before I jump. And the source material outlines the strategy of speed and smoothness, specifically starting with a minimum viable offer.
Yes. The minimum viable offer, or MVO, is your primary instrument for risk mitigation here. And it is vital, absolutely vital, to distinguish the MVO from the frequently used term MVP, or minimum viable product.
Okay, break that down for us. What is the difference?
An MVP often traps teams into actually building the software or manufacturing the good, just in a slightly stripped-down state.
Which still takes a lot of time.
It still requires massive time and capital. An MVO, on the other hand, focuses entirely on the transaction. It is the smallest, simplest, fastest test you can run to see if the market will actually commit resources to your proposed value.
Wait, so the product doesn't even have to exist yet?
Exactly. You don't necessarily need the product to exist. You need the offer to exist.
That is a profound distinction. You are testing the willingness to buy, not your ability to build.
Precisely.
It makes me think of the early days of Dropbox. If I recall correctly, Drew Houston didn't build the entire cloud syncing infrastructure before testing the market.
No, he didn't. Because building the back-end algorithms for multiple operating systems would have taken him years.
Right. So he just created a 3-minute video demonstrating how the software would work, targeting a highly specific community of early tech adopters, and he just put a beta waiting list at the end of the video.
And the result of that video was the waiting list exploding from a few thousand to over 75,000, literally overnight.
That's incredible.
That video was a flawless minimum viable offer. He offered a solution to a massive pain point, which was carrying around USB drives and emailing files to yourself.
I remember those days. It was awful.
It was the worst. And the market responded by offering their email addresses, which was the required currency for that specific transaction. He validated the iron law of the market without writing the millions of lines of code required for the final product.
Wow. Another legendary example that comes to mind is the founding of Zappos.
Oh, Zappos is brilliant.
Right. Nick Swinmurn wanting to sell shoes online in the late 90s when literally everyone told him consumers would never buy footwear without trying it on first.
People thought he was crazy.
If he had followed traditional business models, he would have needed to secure warehouse space, establish supply chain logistics, purchase millions of dollars in inventory, all before he even knew if people would buy shoes on the internet.
Which would have been a catastrophic financial risk.
Right.
Instead, he deployed an MVO. He went to local shoe stores in a mall, took photographs of the inventory, and posted those photos on a super rudimentary website.
That's so scrappy.
It is. When a customer clicked buy and transferred the funds, Swinmurn physically walked back to the mall, bought the shoes at retail price, and shipped them himself.
Which means he was probably losing money on every sale.
Oh, his unit economics were terrible in the short term. But he wasn't trying to build a sustainable finance pillar yet. He was testing the iron law.
He was just checking for gravity.
Exactly. The moment strangers started giving him their credit card numbers based on a photograph, he proved the demand existed. He validated the core assumption of his entire business model with almost zero capital expenditure.
So the MVO is effectively like a sophisticated movie trailer.
Yes, a movie trailer.
When a studio spends $200 million on a blockbuster, they don't just dump it into theaters hoping for the best. They release a 2-minute trailer months in advance.
And they watch the reaction.
Right. They measure the social media engagement, the focus group reactions, the pre-sale ticket numbers. If the trailer flops, they know they have a massive problem on their hands before the premiere, and they can adjust the marketing or even the final edit.
Exactly. The MVO allows you to launch the trailer for your business idea. You collect the data, you engage in iterative feedback loops with the market, and you only build the actual blockbuster once the audiences confirm they want to see it.
That is the exact mechanism. You are substituting blind faith with empirical data.
It takes the ego completely out of it.
But introducing their offer is really only the first phase of market engagement, because once you have validated the demand and your engine is actually running, you immediately encounter the great decelerator of commerce.
Friction.
Friction. Let's transition into operations, because understanding friction seems to be the key to scaling without collapsing. In physics, friction is the resistance that one surface or object encounters when moving over another. It generates heat, it slows down momentum, and eventually it wears down the machine.
Right.
How does this framework categorize friction within the 5 parts of a business?
Well, in a commercial context, friction is any process, requirement, or cognitive load that makes it unnecessarily difficult for a customer to move through your system or for your internal team to execute their tasks.
It's basically an invisible tax.
It is the invisible tax on every single interaction. We can categorize it into 3 main areas: cognitive friction, operational friction, and financial friction.
Okay, let's start with cognitive.
Cognitive friction is when your marketing messaging is just too complex. If a potential client lands on your software's homepage and they cannot understand exactly what problem you solve within 5 seconds, they will leave.
5 seconds. That's fast.
It is. But their brain simply refuses to expend the calories required to decipher your jargon. That is a massive loss of potential revenue due to poor design.
I experience that constantly in B2B software environments. You are fully ready to purchase a solution, but
Yeah.
to actually buy the product, you have to request a demo, wait 3 days for a sales representative to email you, sit through a 45-minute presentation you don't even need, and then negotiate a custom contract.
It's exhausting just hearing you describe it.
The operational friction is so high that the client actively seeks out a competitor with a self-serve checkout, even if the competitor's actual product is slightly inferior.
Yep. The smoother transaction always wins.
Always. And that exact scenario highlights why reducing friction is one of the most powerful competitive advantages a company can possess. Look at the history of Amazon.
Oh, the one-click patent.
Yes. One of their most valuable assets in the early days was the patent they secured for one-click purchasing. They recognized that every time a user had to type in their shipping address and credit card number, a significant percentage of them would experience buyer's remorse or simply get distracted and abandon the cart.
They just walk away.
But storing that data and reducing the checkout process to a single physical click, they effectively eliminated financial and operational friction at the most critical juncture of the sales pillar. They made giving them money the absolute path of least resistance.
And it changed e-commerce forever. So the mandate for leadership is to constantly hunt for friction across all 5 pillars.
Right. Is it hard to find our marketing? Reduce friction?
Is the sales contract too dense? Reduce friction.
Is the onboarding process for the new software confusing? Reduce friction?
Exactly.
But wait, this brings up a logistical nightmare.
Uh-oh, what's that?
Well, if I successfully deploy an MVO and I aggressively strip away all the friction from my marketing and sales funnels, my engine is suddenly going to redline.
Because you're getting so many customers.
Right. The volume of customers is going to spike massively. If I am a solo operator or even just a small team, I am now personally responsible for managing a huge influx of value delivery. This sounds like a fast track to severe entrepreneurial burnout.
Oh, it absolutely is.
How does the framework address the reality of outgrowing your own operational capacity?
This is exactly where tactical execution must evolve into strategic oversight, which brings us to the mental model of systems thinking.
Systems thinking. Okay, break that down.
Most entrepreneurs and professionals start out working in the business. They are a literal gear in the machine. They write the copy, they take the sales calls, they pack the boxes, they reconcile the ledger.
They do everything.
Everything. So when demand spikes because they successfully reduced friction, they simply try to spin faster. They start working 80-hour weeks. But human capacity has a hard biological limit. If you remain a load-bearing gear in your own engine, the business cannot scale past your personal breaking point.
Because you haven't built a scalable commercial entity. You've just engineered a highly stressful, self-managed job that relies entirely on your physical presence to survive.
Precisely. Systems thinking requires a fundamental paradigm shift. You must transition from working in the machine to working on the machine.
Working on the machine.
Right. You have to step back and view the business as a complex, interconnected system of feedback loops and bottlenecks. And a bottleneck is the slowest point in your entire 5-part sequence, which ultimately dictates the maximum throughput of the entire business.
Let's map that cause and effect. If I am the marketing director and I run an incredibly successful campaign that generates 10,000 qualified leads, traditional metrics would say I did a phenomenal job, right?
You'd probably get a bonus.
Right. But through the lens of systems thinking, if our sales team only has the human capacity to process 100 leads a week, my massive marketing success is actually a systemic failure.
It is.
I have flooded the engine, created a massive backlog, frustrated thousands of potential customers who are now waiting on hold, and basically wasted capital on acquiring leads we can't process.
That is the exact danger of isolated optimization. Improving one gear without anticipating the impact on the adjacent gears literally destroys the machine.
So you have to look at the whole picture.
Yes. Systems thinking forces you to anticipate second-order consequences. Before you double your marketing budget, you must first build the automated systems or hire the personnel to double your value delivery capacity.
You have to prep the engine for the extra fuel.
Exactly. You start replacing your manual labor with repeatable processes.
Yeah.
You write standard operating procedures, you deploy software to automate the sales funnel, you outsource logistics to third-party fulfillment centers. You're building an architecture that can operate and scale entirely independent of your daily minute-by-minute intervention.
This is such a masterclass in operational design, but I want to ensure we apply this deeply to the reality of our audience.
Okay, yeah.
Because it is very easy to conceptualize systems thinking and the five-part engine when we are talking about a startup founder building a company from scratch.
Sure, they have a blank canvas.
But the vast majority of professionals listening are mid-level managers, corporate directors, or specialists working within the massive architecture of an existing Fortune 500 company.
Right, they're already in a huge machine.
Exactly. They don't have the authority to completely rewire the value delivery systems of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. How does an employee, a career climber, weaponize these mental models to advance in a rigid corporate hierarchy?
That's a great question.
Because on the surface, understanding the iron law of the market doesn't seem to help a senior graphic designer or a regional HR manager.
I would actually argue that it is precisely within the rigid corporate hierarchy that these mental models become your most lethal competitive advantage.
Really? How so?
Let's look at the pathology of the average corporate employee. Most professionals operate entirely within a silo. They view their job through the very narrow lens of their specific tasks.
Like blinders on.
Exactly. A graphic designer thinks their job is just to make aesthetically pleasing collateral. An IT manager thinks their job is just to ensure server uptime. An HR manager thinks their job is processing payroll and managing benefits.
That's what their job description says.
Right, but because they only see their specific gear, they communicate their value to leadership purely in terms of tasks completed.
Like, I designed 3 brochures this week, or I resolved 40 tech support tickets today.
Exactly. And to a C-suite executive who is looking at the overarching 5-part engine of the entire corporation, an employee who only speaks in terms of task completion is viewed as the necessary expense.
They're just a cog.
They are a cog. Cogs are replaceable, and their compensation is permanently capped by the market rates for that specific task. But when a professional internalizes this framework, their entire paradigm shifts. They stop looking at their silo and start looking at the revenue cycle.
So the HR manager realizes that they aren't just processing paperwork. They are fundamentally responsible for the value delivery capacity of the firm. If employee turnover is high, which is a massive friction point, the firm loses institutional knowledge, delivery times slow down, customer satisfaction drops, and the finance pillar takes a huge hit from constant recruiting costs.
You nailed it. And when that HR manager walks into a performance review, they don't say, I processed 200 benefit claims.
What do they say?
They say, I analyzed our internal systems and identified a critical friction point in employee retention that was directly threatening our value delivery timelines. I designed a new onboarding system that reduced 90-day turnover by 20%, which stabilized our delivery output and saved the finance pillar $50,000 in projected recruiting costs.
Oh, wow. That is a completely different language.
It's the language of the executives.
You have immediately transitioned from a subordinate task executor to a strategic partner. You are demonstrating systems thinking by connecting your specific silo to the overarching health of the commercial engine.
And that is the exact profile of the employee who gets promoted to directorships and the C-suite. Leadership is absolutely desperate for personnel who understand how the entire machine works.
That makes so much sense.
It applies everywhere, even the IT manager. If they understand the MBO, instead of demanding a massive budget to overhaul the entire internal network all at once, they propose a minimum viable offer to leadership.
Let me test this new server architecture on just one regional sales office for 30 days.
Exactly. Let me gather data on whether it actually reduces latency and increases their sales throughput before we roll it out. They are utilizing entrepreneurial risk mitigation within a corporate structure. They become entrepreneurs.
It completely strips away the intimidation factor of corporate advancement. You realize that the executives above you don't possess some arcane magic taught only at Harvard Business School.
No magic at all.
They are simply monitoring the inputs and outputs of value creation, marketing, sales, value delivery, and finance. If you align your daily work with optimizing those 5 pillars and communicate your results through the lens of reducing friction and improving systems, you essentially make yourself indispensable.
It is the ultimate democratization of business acumen. Whether you are launching a weekend side hustle from your kitchen table, attempting to scale a venture-backed tech startup, or navigating the politics of a legacy corporation, the physics of the environment remain exactly the same.
Gravity is gravity.
Right. The iron law dictates what you must build. The minimum viable offer protects your downside risk, the removal of friction accelerates your growth, and systems thinking prevents the machine from destroying itself.
Yeah.
The tools are available to anyone willing to observe reality clearly.
It is incredibly empowering. It essentially states that the X-ray machine isn't broken, and it isn't locked away in a vault. You just needed to learn how to read the scans yourself. You don't need a 6-figure degree to honor the market or to build a functional system. You just have to be willing to look at the world through this deeply analytical, mechanical lens.
That's the secret.
Well, as we wrap up this extensive deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to really mull over. We have spent this entire conversation aggressively applying these mental models to commerce, revenue, and corporate structures.
But they go further than that.
Way further. If business is truly just a set of simple, repeatable processes governed by systems, cause and effect, and the relentless reduction of friction, what other complex areas of your life could be completely transformed if you viewed them through this exact same lens?
Oh, that's a great question.
Think about your personal health routines, your relationships, or your long-term learning habits. What is the fundamental friction preventing you from consistently exercising?
Right. Is it an operational friction, like your gym being 20 minutes out of your way?
Exactly. What systems can you build to automate better nutritional choices so you aren't relying on manual willpower every single evening? How can you deploy a minimum viable offer to test a new hobby or a new lifestyle change this weekend without committing massive amounts of money and time up front?
Just test it.
The mental models we've discussed today are not just the physics of business, they are the physics of human behavior and systemic optimization. They apply everywhere.
That is a brilliant extrapolation. The principles of identifying bottlenecks and aligning your actions with the reality of your environment are totally universal. The framework is just a tool. Where you point it is entirely up to you.
So here is your challenge for the week. Look closely at your own life. Identify your next big idea or your most frustrating bottleneck, whether it is a stalled project at work, a side hustle you've been afraid to launch, or even a personal goal, and figure out your own minimum viable offer.
What's the smallest step you can take?
Right. What is the smallest, fastest, lowest risk way you can test that assumption in reality this week? Gather that data. Observe the iron law of gravity in your own life. Step out of the vacuum and start building.
I love that.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly deep exploration of the personal MBA. If you found value in this breakdown, please subscribe to Book Talk Podcast, leave us a comment with the most surprising business lesson you learned today, and share this episode with a friend or colleague who might be stuck working in their machine instead of on it.
And let us know what book you would like us to deconstruct next. Your suggestions drive the direction of this show. Until next time, keep analyzing the systems around you.
We will see you on the next deep dive.